Oh, I have a button unbuttoned.
Should we redo it?
No. What's up, guys? So today I'm spending some time with the Charger Hellcat and got to thinking, how much does this car actually cost to drive it? I sort of went back through all of my receipts, figured out with depreciation, fuel mileage, and all of that stuff, insurance costs, how much has this car costed me per mile since I bought the car about 1.5 years ago. I'm gonna break that down for you and let you know exactly how much it costs to drive a used Dodge Charger Hellcat per mile. So first of all, I'm gonna talk to you about the reason that I bought this car. So I have some other cars, the Porsche, Lamborghini, that don't really satisfy the straight line thrill that muscle does. And so I was kind of on the lookout for a Hellcat, and I called my friend and I said, hey, can you let me know if a Hellcat comes up on the auction block anywhere that's a good car and a good price, and just let me know. So I was on a business trip and he called me and said, hey, I just dropped a Hellcat off at your shop. And I'm like, Gene, I didn't tell you to buy me one, but he dropped it off. He said, trust me, you're gonna want this one. So when I showed up from the business trip, this was here, and we recorded a video shortly after. I fell in love with the car. It had 19,000 original miles, one owner, and it was an older gentleman. He took awesome care of the car. There were still tags on the seats and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the reason I bought this one. The other reason is I got a really good deal on it because it was a friend, and I don't think he got it from an auction, but he bought it as part of some group of cars or something, and he was able to give me a really good price on the car. So that sort of influenced my decision to buy this. With that being said, I have had a couple of little issues with the car. And so the car had 19,000 miles when I got it, and now it has, hang on, I wrote it down, 34,000 something. Now we've got 34,225 miles on the car. In that time period of about 15,000, we haven't had many issues. Number one was the power steering pump. So shortly after I bought the car, I totally lost power steering. I took it in to Laurel Valley Motors, which is a dealership near us, and I found out the car wasn't still under warranty at that point. I forget why. It was out by a month or something, or the mileage was just, it was barely over. Anyhow, the dealership went to bat for me with Dodge. They actually got it covered. So that repair only ended up costing $222.60, and that was their labor. If I remember correctly, and it's not on my receipt, I want to say that power steering pump was around $600 for the part, but Dodge ended up warranting that for me, which was cool. That was the first problem. The second problem is very recently, about a couple of weeks ago, I started having a pretty bad vibration in the front end of the car, and I took it to a couple of different local shops, and I ended up taking it back to the dealership because they couldn't really get it right. And we figured out that all four wheels were way out of balance. I don't know if they threw a wheel weight or just over time they got out of balance. So they've rebalanced it, and that ended up costing me $95. So we're still right around 300 bucks in problems with the car, and that's pretty much it as far as repairs are concerned. Everything up to that point would have been covered under warranty anyhow, so even if the previous owner had any problems, it wouldn't have costed him anything out of pocket. So another cost of ownership is, of course, routine maintenance, things like oil changes, tires, belts, and things like that. Now, I mentioned that I do have the car to the dealership every once in a while, and they haven't mentioned any other service that has needed done so far, I guess, as far as the scheduled maintenance is concerned, other than just the typical oil changes. So I do have the oil change at the dealer usually, which some people are probably going to make fun of me. I change my own oil in some of my older cars, but for the newer stuff, I just take it to the dealer. Also, we have a great relationship with this dealership. They're about $80 for an oil change on this, and I've had 3 of those so far since I bought the car. And the other thing is tires. I have gone through 2 sets of rear tires on this car. I can't imagine why that has happened. We go through rear tires. So those cost around, I couldn't find any receipts for them, but around $550 for the rear set. I have Nitto NT 550s on this thing. We bought a set down in Texas, so the pricing may have been a little bit different. That was definitely around $550 for that set. That was on a road trip. The front tires I just recently replaced. They actually didn't need it yet, but part of that vibration issue I thought may have been some tires that may have been worn unevenly after we couldn't fix it on the first attempts of balancing. So I have about $1,100 in rear tires and about $500 in front tires. So we're about $1,600 in tires. So if we add that up for cost out of pocket for parts that actually go on the car, $222 for that power steering pump, $1,600 for tires, and about $240 for oil changes. So all in, it's only about $2,062. Now I've had the car for about a year and a half, and like I said, 15,000 miles. That doesn't seem too bad for me for parts. All right, so the other two costs that I took into consideration are the insurance costs of the car as well as the fuel consumption. So I'll start with insurance since that one's easy. This car is on a commercial policy because it's a marketing vehicle for my business, and we are an automotive business, of course. So that it might be slightly more expensive to insure this than on a personal policy. So keep that in mind if you're watching this video thinking about buying a Hellcat used. But my cost to insure this is $1,680 a year. Or $140 a month. Again, I really don't think that's that bad. I've had the car, like I said, for a year and a half. So let's do the math there. We're at $2,520 in insurance costs on the Hellcat Charger. And the next one is fuel consumption. Now, obviously, this is very variable between how far you drive the car at a time, how you drive the car, and things like that. This car has a very large engine with a supercharger. It's not known for getting the best gas mileage in the world, but again, that's not why you buy the car. I am averaging a pathetic 10.7 miles per gallon. And I remember in the first video, or John reminded me of it at least, when we first were going over the car, I mentioned that I didn't think we were going to be able to achieve the advertised fuel consumption of 16 miles per gallon. I don't see that happening. And I don't think that we have hit that. I think it's like 16 miles per gallon is what they claim. Of course, I do drive the car a little bit hard. I did not buy this thing to putt around town. I bought it to have fun with it. So 10.7 miles per gallon is what we're looking at. The car takes 93 octane fuel, and over the last year and a half, I looked up the average of that, and in my area where I live, that is $3.30 a gallon. So we're gonna do the math on that right now. So I put 14,437 miles on the car. At 10.7 miles per gallon, we've used 1,349 gallons of fuel in this car. We're gonna multiply that times the average cost of a gallon. So we've spent $4,452 on fuel over the last year and a half. That number seems like kind of high. So let's take that, and we're gonna add that to the $2,062 in parts that we have in the car. So we're gonna add that to the insurance cost of the car for a year and a half, which was $2,520, plus the $6,514 between fuel and parts. And that brings us to a grand total of about $9,034 out of pocket to drive this car for the last year and a half. That seems really high. So that's $9,034 over the last year and a half. I did not do that math prior to this video, so my first reaction is that's kind of high. I'm assuming that's because of the fuel costs. I should do this with some other cars and see what they come out to. 62.5 cents per mile to drive this thing, which means that every time I drive it to and from Pittsburgh, from where I live, it costs me 50 bucks. So the last elephant in the room is the depreciation of the car. Of course, if you buy the car new, you're gonna have a massive depreciation cost, and it would probably far outweigh the $9,000 that we've spent on it in the last year and a half. In fact, I would be willing to guess you'd probably take a $15,000 hit within the first year of buying this, if not more than that. So we're ahead of the game in that. Now, we did get a really good deal on the car, like I mentioned, and recently I've reached out to the dealership because I was thinking about getting a Charger Red Eye when they come out. I'm still on the fence about it, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to keep this one. But I asked them, what would you give me on trade for the car? And I'm not going to tell you exactly what they offered me, but they offered me exactly what I paid for the car. So, on a trade, not private party. So, we basically lost no value at all over the last year and a half. If anything, I might be able to sell it private party for slightly more than I paid for the car. So depreciation, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't exist with this thing. For my purposes, I can't guess on it because I don't want to calculate based on something that we didn't experience. So this thing has not cost me a dime in depreciation, which means that the grand total for how much does it cost to drive a used Dodge Charger Hellcat per mile is 62.5 cents per mile if the car is no longer under warranty, and if you drive kind of like an idiot and you like to do burnouts. So guys, that's it. What do you think about that cost per mile? Let me know. Is it high? Is it low? Tell us what you think about that, and we will see you next video.